What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. We have a good friend of mine here to join us today. Former Division One athlete, former NFL veteran, a motivational speaker to anybody from high school to middle school to grown people in a professional setting. Just welcome my good friend Thomas Williams. T. Will, what up, man? Welcome to the show.
It's too good to be true. What it do, baby? What it do?
I appreciate that, man. You bringing a lot of energy, as we know, when we step up into this space. And one thing that I like to talk about, I'm blessed to have this show because a lot of the people that I've invited on have been friends that have been real people that are really close to me, people that I think bring value to the show and to the audience and to my listeners. And so it's always a pleasure when I can connect friends and bring them in and people that are, I say ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And Thomas is definitely one of those people. And it's funny how we got connected because we met about 10 or so years ago from our homeboy Terrell Turner. Met you at his wedding. He's always told me, like, man, I gotta get you with my boy Thomas. Like, man, you're gonna do great things, and he's doing great things. So the relationship that's been 10 years now, pretty much is what I feel it's been. But just being able to have you on the show, man, it's my pleasure to have you on, and just thank you for just making the time and having the time.
Man, you know what's so cool is that we have such enlightening conversations, and I love what you're doing with your platform and with your show because you're bringing the enlightening conversations to the public. I mean, you're giving the people an opportunity to be a fly on the wall in some of the greatest conversations that you have, and then you also take actions from them, and so they can inspire, motivate, and encourage other people to do the same thing, man. So I'm excited. Let's give the people what they came for.
Let's give it to him, man. One of the things, so as we first begin, man, you and I are in an accountability group. So we have a text message with there are other mostly Trojans in there, mostly
That's
USC
right.
Trojans, but
That's right.
a lot of college guys and some NFL guys. And it's pretty much just an accountability group where every day you can show the work that you're doing. So whether that you're in the weight room, whether you got a, speaking engagement, whether you're reading, whether you're focusing on another language, how has that accountability group been for you, and what has it provided for you?
Man, you know what the greatest thing is that people build consistency through accountability. It could be anything, whether you want to write a book, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to save money, you want to buy a house, you want to go to college. It doesn't matter what it is. And I love the accountability group that we have because it's about consistency in whatever you want. There's guys in there, like you said, who want to learn a new language. There's people in there who are going back to school. There's people who are writing books. There's people who are losing weight. And it's great not to have to all do the same things, but also being exposed to other accomplishments, other goals. And so for me in particular, man, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I don't even feel like doing what I want to do. And so when you have the accountability partners, the brothers, the sisters, the group of people who are on the same mission, they might not be doing the same thing, but they're on the same mission, going in the same direction, which is up, forward. It's just great because that positive peer pressure, I like to call it, if you haven't posted in there for 2 days, 3 days, pretty much people start putting out the back signal and they're like, hey, where's Thomas? Thomas, where you been? We ain't seen you posting here in a minute. So it's been incredible, man, to have that. I know I've gotten better as a person, as a father, as a husband, even so as the education, the literacy, the things that I want to develop and grow. So I'm grateful for it, man, because half the time, especially the one days that I don't like going, I know that I have to go because I got to post. I got to post. I got to bring in the energy to the group, man. It's what keeps the ethos going.
It's funny you say that, man. Like I love the accountability group too. I'm glad I'm in it. We're in there with a bunch of just top-notch dudes that are doing great things all around. But a lot of us being former athletes, man, one of the biggest things that I really get from there and that I really appreciate is that we talk about health in there. You know what I mean? People are
Mm-hmm.
saying, I went to therapy today. Like, people are saying, hey guys, make sure you go get your checkups and stay up to date. This popped up for us. And so that's been one of the biggest things for me because, as men, sometimes we don't talk about that health part a lot. Sometimes we
Yeah.
leave that part out and we're not really questioning each other on that. When it comes to health, man, how have you been taking care of yourself, and also how do you bring that vulnerability into the to the accountability group chat?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I think football has given me in particular is the awareness, right? You go to practice when you're playing, you know what your pregame practice or your pre-practice routine, and then you get into the game. What's your pregame meal, right? You always eat the same thing, or you take the same route to the stadium. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to lifestyle. And so for me, man, It's knowing my body, knowing what I need mentally, and knowing what I need spiritually. So here's what I always say is that you feed yourself so that you can feed others. And so there's three things that I do every single day that make me the best me, right? We've all seen the Snickers commercial where it say, you're hungry, so you're hangry. You need to try a Snickers so you can get back to being yourself. And so I think it's the same thing. So my three things are be the first one in my household to wake up. We have three kids, 5, 3, and 1. And so, I mean, sometimes the kids can sleep in the bed with you. Sometimes they might wake up earlier than you. But I know if majority days I can be the first person up in the family, in the household, I'm going to have a pretty good day. Then I come downstairs to the basement where I get 30 minutes of just me time, where I'm reading, I'm listening to something encouraging or motivational. And then I jot down my to-do list for the day. If you don't have a plan, you will plan to fail for sure. And then the next thing is I got to do 30 to 45 minutes of some type of physical activity. And then that's what allows me to be the best that I possibly can every single day. And so I think that if I can be physically healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy, then I'm going to give myself a great opportunity to be the best, right? Who my family needs, most importantly, and then also who my clients, what my business needs, and the people who are around me on a day-to-day basis.
I think as football players, it's funny. We all are like routine based in a certain way. And, like we have ways we're getting ready for the game and
Yep.
preparation. And so, like in our group message, even just hearing you talk right now about what your morning routine is and the kind of goals and standards you have, I'm over here like, all right, I gotta adjust. Okay, Thomas is up. He's doing 30 minutes of this, 45 minutes of this. And not that we're in competition with each other,
No.
but it's just like iron sharpens iron. Proverbs
Yeah.
27:17, one of my favorite Bible verses. And it pretty much is talking about good on good. Like, how
Yeah.
do you get good? Oh, you got to go against somebody that's good. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-star and you're going against the 1-star and you can beat them to death 100 times. Can you go against that other 5-star and best him 6 out of 10 times, or split 5 out of 5? So I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your morning routine as I'm over here changing some stuff up on my
So
little
what's yours? I
notepad.
mean, what's your current morning routine? Or it doesn't even have to be morning routine. Where do you find consistency in your routine?
Man, same with me. Getting up early. I have a lower lumbar sprain right now, or strain in my back, so I'm kind of like, all right, Drew, you got to rest a little bit.
Yeah.
But on a regular week, if I'm working out 4 days a week. I'm up at about 4:35. I'm headed to the gym. I'm done by like 6 or 6:30. Come back home, shower, get in this office, get in front of this computer, start handling stuff by 6:37.
Yeah.
So I can be done or wrapping up around 2 or 3.
Yep.
But for me, also me, like, I've done doing better with spending time with God in the morning. So I spend, 15 or 30 minutes doing a Bible study or just reading my Bible on a verse that I'm not familiar with. And then also just setting my intention for the day. Recently I said, hey, I'm gonna do 30 days of meditation. It's something I've gotten away from. And I'm actually gonna, document it on Instagram a little bit. And those that follow me on Instagram, I've been opening up more and doing more stuff. But honestly, like, I don't like showing everything I do to just to make it seem like I'm doing it. Like, I try to do things and not have to tell people, like, because this is what I wanted to do. And so those are things that I do to get my morning started, because for me, the morning is such an important time. And there are some people that don't like waking up, don't like getting up. And not saying that I did in high school or college either, but I realized that was the time I was most productive,
Yeah.
when the surroundings are still quiet, or when everybody else
Yeah.
is kind of just I'm like, okay, cool, it's quiet, I could do some work.
You
So
can do something.
that's it for me. And we look in, we see the USC helmet behind you, we see the Jacksonville Jaguars helmet behind you, former NFL player, but we all start with a story. And
Yeah.
everybody looks at where we've been recently, but you taking it back to the beginning. Talk to me about Thomas as a young, athlete, football player. When you first got into football or sports, what kind of player were you? And kind of just what was your introduction to sports and to being an athlete?
Yeah, man. So you're taking me all the way back to Vacaville, California. And so if you've had heard of Vacaville, you know what it is. If you haven't, it's literally the place between San Francisco and Sacramento. It's the place where normally you stop to get some gas. And so growing up, my parents were divorced. I'm a biracial kid growing up in a predominantly white community. So I suffered a lot from identity issues. And so I fell into sports because my stepdad, who raised me with sports, he just had a huge impact in my life and influence. He was a softball player. And so, like a lot of kids, they grow up and they want to be like their parents. And so I wanted to be a baseball player. He had played baseball growing up. And we would watch baseball games every single night. And so I finally started playing baseball, and I started to be really good. And so from elementary school up until middle school, I was like the most sought after like baseball player in the area. And so I played on a traveling baseball team in middle school. And it was actually funny because on this travel team, I never played. It was the travel team. You're not playing against the best people in your town, the best player in your state. You're playing against the best players in the country. And I mean, we would go to, Arizona, we would go to Oklahoma, we would go to Texas, Tennessee, all these different places. And I literally would never play. In fact, like as I'm saying this story, I feel bad for my parents because it was a lot of money. And so I learned very early on that it's not good enough to be the best player in your local area. You need to be the best player in the country. And I think the same thing goes for business. And so I was in eighth grade, going into ninth grade, the summer going into ninth grade, and I had a high school coach, Ed Padre, who would call me once a week. And he'd say, "Hey, we missed you at football practice today. Hey, you coming to football practice?" And so we had kind of started this conversation consistently of he would call every Wednesday. And I'd always tell him, "Coach, I'm not coming out to the football team. I'm playing baseball." And so one day he had called, he's like, "Hey, it's totally fine. I know you're playing baseball. Just come play football. And then you can play baseball back in the spring." And so I was like, no, because every single person that I'd ever seen play the game of football in elementary school always came to school on those next Mondays and Tuesdays with a cast on either their arm or their foot. And I was like, football equals injuries. You can't do certain things. And there was this one tournament in particular where I finally got in the game, and I was on second base. And the next guy behind me hit the ball to right field. So I'm coming around third base, running as fast as I can. It wasn't too fast, but it was as fast as I can. And the third base coach held up his arms like this, telling me to stop, like stop, 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 stop. But I just ran right through his signal, and I was headed towards home plate. The catcher caught the ball. He turned to me, and instead of sliding or trying to avoid him, I just naturally ran him over. And he fell, and I thought I was going to get in a whole bunch of trouble. And I walked back to the dugout, and my coach was like, "Hey, that's a hell of a play." And it was like something became alive in me in that moment. It was like I had become like reborn again athletically, because I thought I was going to play Major League Baseball. And so we had ended up like getting top 5 or top 10 in that tournament. And so I'm back in Vacaville. My mom and I are doing laundry in the garage because that's where we did it. And she's like, "So you got 2 weeks before school starts going into ninth grade. Like, what are your plans? What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know, Mom. Probably like sleep in, play video games, and hang out with my friends." She's like, "All your friends are playing football." She says, "I got a better idea. You got 2 options. Either you can get a job or you can play football." And I was like, "Well, I'm about to call Coach Santa Padre again real quick, see if he has that slot open for me," because there was no way in hell I was going to get a job. And man, I tell you, that was one of the hardest decisions that I had to make. Like, oh, I don't want to cheat on baseball with football, but it actually turned out to be one of the best things. In fact, before going into ninth grade, my highest grade point average was a 2.3. My very first report card in high school after playing football, having structure, discipline, all of those things, I had a 3.5. And so for me, man, sports was everything, but football turned into my everything.
Man, I love having people on because I always learn something that I really didn't know before. And so like I didn't know you used to be a baseball player. Like I see Thomas the linebacker. I'm like, yeah, Thomas has always been big. He's always been a bruiser and running people down and tackling. And then
Nah,
to
man,
hear
it
it
was
all
baseball.
started.
Love at first sight.
And I was gonna say, and then to hear like, for you running over a catcher that you're kind of like, this hidden thing is kind of, I think I can do this. I think I can dig this a little bit.
Yeah,
Staying with
man.
that, staying in that realm, like just staying with that because me just finding this out. Like who was your favorite baseball player growing up then? Who did you want to model your game after?
So we always living in the Bay or living close to the Bay Area. We always go to Oakland A's baseball games or the San Francisco Giants. So man, growing up, Oakland, it was Ricky Henderson, and on the opposite side of the Bay, it was Barry Bonds. So it was Ricky Henderson, Barry Bonds. So I modeled my game. So I wanted to be fast like Ricky. Again, I told you in the beginning, I wasn't very fast, but I gave you all my effort and energy. And then with hitting power, I wanted to be like Barry Bonds, just hitting baseballs over the fence. I was like, it's a heck of a lot easier to jog around the base when no one's chasing you with a baseball than it is to try to avoid them when they're going to try to tag you.
I feel that with both of those players. Actually, I'm gonna send you a book. I read this great book on Ricky Henderson, written by Howard Bryant, and it just
Okay.
talks about how he was ahead of his time, and just his base stealing record will never be broken because he was just
Ever.
doing such great stuff. So, but no, I appreciate you sharing that. So you go eighth grade to ninth grade, you start playing football because you like, nah, we not finna work no job, mom. That's what we not gonna do around here.
Yeah.
How was that transition with getting into football? What was that learning curve like? Especially, and I'm not going to say getting into it so late because I started playing football and baseball when I was 8. Baseball is the first sport I played.
Okay.
But, being I ain't gonna say you're a novice, but switching from baseball to football in high school where guys are
Huge.
going for scholarships and things like that. What was that learning curve like going from the baseball diamond to the football field?
Man, you know what? I love learning now, but I hated the learning curve back then. And I remember when we would go out to football practice, and I get there like the first day. I haven't been with the team during the summer. I didn't play growing up. And so they're like, okay, the two hole or the A gap or the B gap. Okay, this is the tackle and a three shade. And I'm like, there's letters, numbers, shades, inside, outside. I'm so confused. Like, please tell me more. But what I learned, Drew, is that because I didn't, I'm a perfectionist and I hate not knowing. And I've been this way my entire life. As soon as I would go to your house and you get a new video game and you're kicking my behind, I want to get the video game. I'm gonna go to Blockbuster when Blockbuster was open. I would rent it, and for the whole entire weekend, I'm playing the video game because the next time we play, I want to be better. And so the same thing came about with football. So I would spend so much time with like my coaches, whether it was in school, whether it was after school, before school, and I would just ask them these questions like, Coach, where's the A gap? Okay, so you're telling me there's an A gap. Okay, now this player moves in the A gap move? Well, wait a minute. Okay, where's the three? Wait, there's an A gap or a three gap. What's the three hole? What's the six hole? And so I think the greatest thing was for me is that I didn't know too much about the game of football. And I knew a lot about baseball. And I think that's why I burnt out later on in my high school career with baseball because I felt arrogant, little, you know what, but I was like, I know way more than these coaches. So I don't need to listen to the coach. But when it came to football, I was like, I don't know anything. So I need to listen to the coach. There was a lot of trust, dependency, as well as, mastery. So coming up for me, man, the learning curve was massive. I mean, the thing that they always say, you can't teach speed, you can't teach size. I had one of them, so I had size. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of a delayed learning aspects. I could get away with some things because of my size, but I remember making the jump from freshman football up to varsity. And man, you want to talk about small fish in a big pond. That was probably the biggest learning curve, but it also set me up for life because I was I was a bigger kid, but I was a mental midget, if you will. And so what that means for me is that I didn't see what other people saw in me, and so I had to try that much harder.
Yee. And so, man, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. So you talk about you being you said you were an all-star baseball player when you played. You go to football now, and you're like, what? A shade, a two-hole, a odd, a gap, a two-man, with all this other stuff. When did you discover that you were good at football? Because, like you said, you're pretty raw over there. You said later on in baseball you thought you knew everything because you've been playing so long, and football's still new to you. So you're like, okay, you guys can teach me stuff.
Yeah.
Was there a certain play or a certain moment where you were like, I think I'm pretty good. I think I'm good.
Yeah, they say what you don't know isn't what hurts you. It's what you don't know that you don't know. And it was my senior year and I knew I was okay. I knew I was pretty good. And so I got this letter and Drew, because you've been recruited, it said Army on it. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to Army Academy. I'm gonna go to like one of these Power Five schools. And so I threw this letter away. The next morning in the paper, my mom comes in my room as I'm getting ready and she hands me this newspaper article. And it says, Thomas Williams, U.S. Army Parade All American. And I was like, what? What? What do you mean? Why didn't I ever get notification of this? And so it hit me in that moment. It's like, oh my gosh, the letter that I just threw away yesterday is my invitation to becoming a U.S. Army All American, Parade All American. And so I went out as fast as I could, went to the trash, digging through the trash, and I found this invitation. And I think that was the first time that I knew that I was different. when playing because I had heard about guys getting scholarships, going on to play the next level. But I never thought I was going to be one of them. I never thought I was going to be one of them. And so my head was down, just trying to learn the plays, trying to make sure I withheld my grades to a certain standard, a certain level. And it wasn't until like my senior year where I got invited to this, elite game where it was an invitation only. Not everybody who played high school football came to it. And so that's when I learned, like, all right, you might be pretty good at this thing. And so I went to this game, and it was guys like Lindell White, Reggie Bush. Um, I mean, there were so many people from our class, and there was like 25 people from that game that all went to USC. So I met my teammates before they became my teammates.
Man, I didn't have that on my bingo card that you threw away your Army All-American invite. Like,
I didn't
Army,
know.
what is this?
I thought it was a recruiting letter, man.
But that's what makes those stories good. And that's what it talks about being a little wet behind the ears when it comes to football. Like if you were a young man that had been playing football this whole time, like you would have saw the, US All-American game, Army All-American games and the All-Star games and things like that. And so, like you said, you talked about one of my friends and a guy I look up to because he's from Colorado, and I was like, hey, I can make it out if he can, which
Yeah.
was Lindell White. You talk about Reggie Bush, who was a Heisman winner, and you guys just had some awesome, awesome guys there at USC at that time. You go to this Army All-American game, but essentially, from what I know, you were choosing between USC and Notre Dame when it came to go to college.
Yeah.
What made you choose USC over Notre Dame?
Man, my coach, coaches are players' best friends when they're good coaches, when they give advice based off of the destination of the player and not the desires of the coach. And so I had a great coach in high school. He actually wasn't a coach. He was a retired coach, but he was like a mentor. And so I had asked him one day, I said, I got this hard decision. I have to choose because at that time, USC and Notre Dame were both at the peak of, their university runs. And so they were starting to pull scholarships. And so they were saying, hey, like, you have to make a decision. Either you're in or you're out. If you're out, beat it. And so I went to his house one night, and I said, Coach Z, I have to make a choice. I have to choose between Notre Dame or USC. Who should I choose? He said, I'm not going to tell you who to choose, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask you this. He says, Notre Dame's going to play a 1:00 game on a Saturday. Is your mom going to be able to come to the game? And I was like, yeah. He goes, probably a few of them, but not going to be able to come to every game. He says, you're raised in California. Notre Dame snows, and Indiana snows in the winter. Are you going to be able to handle that? He's like, you're going to be 25 minutes away from the beach. Which one do you want to choose? And in that moment, I thought about, first and foremost, my mom being able to see me play. And then secondly, I thought about the beach. I was like, man, there's no way. I don't want to do snow, and not if I have to. And so I chose USC, and it just so happened to be I went to the best school at the best time, and made my decision to go to USC. And from the way that it turned out, it was the greatest professional and personal decision I could have ever made, especially at 18 years old.
I love that, man. You always need a great coach who's sprinkled in there to be able to look outside of the glitz and the glamour, the brands, the names on the helmets. But we're we're 18 or 17 and we think we're grown and we're like, yeah, I'm going to college. I can make these decisions by myself. I don't need any help. But you had somebody that talked about, man, is your mom going to be able to come to the games?
The stuff,
And
the outside the helmet stuff, right? Because like as soon as you hear recruiting or as soon as you get scholarship, it's like, okay, what position am I going to play? Am I going to play right away? Who's in front of me? He didn't talk about any of that. He was like, and the thing that he said that helped me actually solidify and confirm the decision was go to the place that you like, even when you're not playing football.
Mhm.
And that was like, again, these are all things outside of football. They're outside of these white lines that are 53 and a third, that are 120 yards long. Like, go to the place that you want to go to, even if you weren't playing football. And as soon as I hit that campus, I mean, you live in LA, it's hard to beat the weather. Like what my man Biggie says, the weather, the women, in the, you know what? So it's Cali.
100%, man. And you hit on it. You said you go to a school or you're deciding on one. Where can I play? Am I going to be starting? Who else is coming with me? And when you go to USC, something interesting happened. Like there was a lot of talented people that went there. You guys had very, very good recruiting classes. Pete Carroll's taken over there. The program's going in a different direction after being down for so long. You get there and you play linebacker, but you also play another position. What was it like not just focusing on your position, but kind of going where you were needed or going where you would be able to receive some playing time?
Man, you have to understand, you will always be given the answers to the test before you take it. The answers to the tests were do as many things as you can, become as valuable as you can, so you will be as useful as you can. So I went to school as a linebacker. There was a whole bunch of other really good linebackers. There were first round players, guys who have had their numbers retired on their professional teams, guys who have won Super Bowls, guys who will probably go into the Hall of Fame. There were some dudes. And so I remember talking with my coach at the time. He was like, hey, it's more important for you to get on the field as a player than it is for you to wait behind somebody in one particular position. So he said, what do you think about linebacker? Or what do you think about fullback? So playing linebacker, what do you think about fullback? And I said, I'm not thinking about it at all. And then he's like, well, I think you're going to make yourself more valuable for the opportunity and the chance to play in the NFL if you play some fullback. And so I did it. I listened to his advice. But here's the thing. When you have a great coach, mentor, boss, trust needs to be built first before truth can be heard. And so we had years of, really in-depth conversations, again, not about football, but about life. And he'd always been straight up legit and forthcoming with the things that he had shared with me. So I was like, man, I'll trust you. I don't believe you, but I'll trust you. And so I trusted him. I played fullback for a little bit. And then going into my senior year, I had a real conversation with him because it didn't look like I was going to play in the NFL. At that time, I had started maybe 6 or 7 games. And so I went into his office right before senior year was going to start. And I said, hey, I don't care if I get on the field or how much I get on the field as a linebacker. Just let me have fun. This is going to be my last year of playing football. Let me just have fun. The meetings, the bus rides, the practices, I'm just going to enjoy it all. And Drew, it's crazy because I went through training camp as a linebacker, still unsure of my future, and guys are playing in front of me. I thought I had one of the best practices, camps, preparation that I'd ever had. And he gave me this great piece of advice that I want to share with any of the listeners, that you can take this or you can share it. And I went into his office and it didn't look like I was going to play. And I said, Coach, what are you supposed to do when you're in a battle, you're in a fight that it doesn't look like you're going to win? And he paused like he so eloquently does, thinks about it, and then speaks. And he says, if you give everything to your dream of becoming an NFL football player and it doesn't happen, maybe they don't deserve you. And in that moment, what he did is that he put me on the same pedestal as my dream. See, most of the time we put our dreams, our visions, that lofty goal on a pedestal and we have to look up to it. But as soon as you can look straight across, just like I'm looking into the camera now, and you can say, we're on the same level. I'm going to give you everything that I got. And if you don't select me, then you don't deserve me. It doesn't have to do anything with my value, my self-worth. Then there's a massive breakthrough. So I went through that whole entire year pressure-free, knowing that I'm going to give it everything I got. Hey, if you choose me, cool. If you don't, that's on you, not on me. And man, I tell you, I had the most productive, fun year in sports that I've ever had, all because there was no pressure. So it was the most pressurized season for me, but it was the least amount of pressure that I felt.
Thank you for sharing, man. I think, when we talk about sports and winning, there's this idea of pressure or expectation that comes with it. And it seems like you pulled that off of you by somebody telling you or giving you some game on something where you're like, you know what? You're exactly right. Like playing, there's so much about saying that playing carefree and what that can bring you as far as a
Yeah.
freedom. To
Yeah.
go out there and to not be afraid to make mistakes or, what I mean, to be wrong or to just to know and trust your instincts and act on stuff.
Well,
And
it's
so
the
you,
difference between going from doing something with and for love as opposed to with and for fear. Two different things that I was doing. The first way, if I would have went through my last season the way that I went into his office, I would have went with fear and from fear. But when we had that conversation, he shifted my perspective so quickly, and I went with love from love.
Mm. And so, speaking about great coaches, we're just doing a great job segueing. I love when that happens. Speaking about great coaches, you had the chance to play with Pete, or play with, or play for Pete Carroll, a guy who's won a national championship, won a Super Bowl championship, and now is the head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders again. And he's back in the game after sitting out last year. What was it like playing for Coach Carroll, and just the intensity and the energy and just the wisdom and knowledge that he brought to the college level?
Well, first and foremost, Pete Carroll is exactly who he is on TV. That's who he is in the locker room. That's who he is in a film room. That's who he is behind closed doors on a practice field. He is who he is. And it's very rare that you see leaders that are like that, because they might want to show one way, but behind closed doors, they might be a completely different person. I would say the biggest thing about Pete Carroll, because I played for Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick. And so they're obviously both successful in their own rights, but they lead completely different. Not right, not wrong, but they lead authentically. And the thing with Pete, what he does so masterfully is that he gives people the keys to the positive mindset so that they can have the positive outcome. Like, I'll tell you the first story. He gets up first day of training camp, and we're freshmen, 18 years old. And he says, all right, guys, here's what I want us to do. Everybody stand up, and I want you to switch seats. Everyone's like, are we going to switch seats? This is my seat, right? Like, we talked about athletes. We're routine, habitual creatures. I'm going to sit in my seat. This is what I do. He goes, nope, last year's over. If we sit in our same seats as we did last year, we're going to see this season the same way we did last year. We can't take last year's wins with us into this season. So that was the first thing. The second thing was he shared this incredible story. He said, guys, there's going to be two types of players in this room. First type of player is going to be like a little boy who walks into one of these interview rooms, the ones that you can't see out, but you can only see in. So there's this little boy who's in this room, and he walks into this room full of manure, and the parents can see in. And there's also a doctor, like a therapist in there, who's like observing the boy. And so he starts banging on the windows like, let me out, let me out, let me out. That's player one. There's going to be one of those. He said, some of you guys are going to be lucky enough to be like player number two. And this kid walks into the same room, manure, same windows, same mirrors, and he starts going crazy. He's excited. He's digging through the manure. He's pumped up. He's excited. Now he's banging on the windows. And he goes, Mommy, Daddy, with all this crap in the room, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. And he said, that's going to be the player that we're going to play. And those are going to be the players that are going to take us to the championship. And man, he wasn't lying. During the course of my 4 years and then one redshirt year, we went 59-6. And we lost those 6 games, yes, to the Oregon Ducks before, Drew, you get to it, by a culmination of 17 points. We lost by 1, we lost by 2, we lost by 3, we lost by 4, we lost by 7. Like, it was crazy. And the thing is that he always taught us that it's the perspective that drives performance, not the circumstances, not the score. There was games that we lost. We were losing by, double digits at halftime. We were getting smoked, but we always had the perspective. The next thing that Pete did phenomenally well, that leaders, you'll see this in great leaders. If you've worked at places that have an awesome culture, if you work at places that have a crappy culture, you'll have no clue what I'm talking about. Pete Carroll always made it feel, as the players, it was our team. He was just guiding the ship. Where you'll see the micromanaging leaders that will always make it feel like it's their team or it's their organization. You just work for them. And what Pete did phenomenally well, he made it feel like it was our team. During practice, we would have, the speakers on the sideline, and he would always let us play our music. It wouldn't be a crowd noise. It would be our music. So we were like, oh man, this is dope, because Pete was like, I don't care what's coming out the speakers. I just want to get noise so the players can get acclimated to what's going to happen when we go up to Autzen. Obviously, it didn't work that one time. Another thing that Pete did is during training camp, some of the hardest days, Drew. And what you do is you're at the facility for 12, 14 hours a day. And so he would just randomly sprinkle these like surprises in. So like one time in particular, we would come in, we'd have a practice in the morning, supposed to go out and have our double day practice that afternoon. And he would come in at lunchtime in the locker room or in the tape room. He says, "Hey guys, take off your tape, put on your board shorts. We're all going to Manhattan Beach. We're going to go to it was like the professional volleyball tournament that they always have. And here we are, guys, for 2 weeks around other dudes. And now you're going to put us out into the wild and let us go to a volleyball tournament on a beach where there's beautiful women, there's waves, there's all these things." And we were like, "Oh, this is our team." But see, Coach Carroll, what he was doing was helping us get in and out of distraction time, because he knew that there was going to be a time where we were going to go to Autzen, or we were going to go to Auburn, Alabama, or we were going to go to Florida for a national championship. And we were going to have to hit that light switch of turn it on, turn it off, turn it on to hang out, have a good time, relax, chill, let yourself be. And then you're going to have to turn it back off so that you can turn back on the athlete, the competitor, the champion. And so he did a phenomenal job of those things. He never just said, "Hey guys, we have practice tomorrow. We're just going to show up and throw the ball around." He always had a plan and a reason for it. Great leaders are intentional. Average leaders are passive.
Oh man, I just fell in love with Pete Carroll so much more. I've always respected him as a coach. I know he does things differently and outside of it, and just not just cookie cutter, but dang, 59-6 throughout your 4 years at USC. Like, and you guys didn't lose any games by what, more than 7, you said?
It was 7 points. That was to you
Like,
guys.
that's a blessing. Like, you know what I mean? In a world where that sort of prestige and those level of heights are hard to be met, but it means it's met because of the work you guys put in leading up to the game and the preparation and also the fun that you're having. I
Yeah.
remember watching those USC teams and I'm like, it looks fun where they're at. It looks fun, and not just because they're in LA and
Yeah.
Snoop is on the sideline and Will Ferrell. Like, it really looks fun, and they look like they're really having fun, beating up on you, putting up points, tackling you, making you fumble, taking this pick six the other way. And so you guys definitely like made your mark on history and all those great things about Pete Carroll. I'm happy that you shared that. And looking at the overall, so you say senior year, you're nervous going into it. You don't know if you're going to play. You just want to have fun. You go into senior year, you have a great senior year, you end up getting drafted 5th by the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're the first person drafted from your high school since Vincent Newsom back in 1983. Don't know if you knew that, but what was it like and what did it feel like being drafted and getting that phone call and hearing your name called for a dream that you kind of didn't think would happen, fast forward a year before that?
Yeah, this is something I still talk about to this day. So kind of going back to the success that we had at USC, it's a person with a vision is powerful, but a team with a vision is unstoppable. And we really were. And the biggest difference, Drew, I think, between good organizations, great teams, great departments, is that they have a we first mentality and a me mentality comes after that. So our whole entire time we were at USC, did people have dreams, aspirations of playing pro ball? Of course. But the first thing we always thought about was own the Rose Bowl, win it. Win as many games as you can in conference. Back then it was a Pac-10, which meant that if you came first in the Pac-10, you were automatically going to the Rose Bowl. So the least bowl game I ever played in, the worst one was the Rose Bowl. We went to there 4 times, played in the Orange Bowl. And that's what got me drafted, because I held on to my vision, but I replaced my vision with the team vision. And because I did that, I didn't have any, I didn't belong to play in the NFL, not on paper. If you put me next to someone else, you go, the other person should have went there. But because we did so good as an organization, so good as a team, then the NFL was like, this guy, we got to bring him into our culture. And so when I got drafted, it was like a dream had come true. Hugged my mom, because the story I didn't share was when I was in the 6th grade, my mom went to a parent teacher conference and she came home and I knew it was parent teacher conference day. Not my favorite day in the world, but you know what? We went through 5 of these before. We'll be all right. She comes into the room crying and she goes, "You know what your teacher told me today?" And I go, "No." Like, something like what? He's good at math. He loves recess, loves lunchtime, and talks when he's not supposed to be speaking. And she said, "No. Your teacher today told me by the time you're 16 years old, you're going to be the leader of the gang shot, stabbed, and killed." And so I mentioned that story because on that day, and it's funny, I just sent, I just looking at pictures recently in my photo album of that day. And I remember hugging her so tight because on that day, I made myself the promise that I was going to give my mom tears of joy. So at 12 years old, I was like, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know what's the outcome, but one day we're going to hug because of tears of joy. And April 29th, 2008 was that day where I gave her tears of joy. And I was like, we made it. We made it. And so going into the locker room for the first time, you think that it's going to be like, oh, now I'm going to be happy. Now I'm going to be excited. Now I'm going to be pumped up. Now I'm going to be encouraged. Nothing changed. And in fact, Drew, I remember during my rookie year, I lived alone in an apartment in Jacksonville. Family was on the West Coast. My dad lived in South Florida at the time. And so I was basically alone. But I remember sitting there on my couch and I was like, God, I'm not having as much fun as I thought. I was like, you know, when I had the most fun is when I was chasing this dream, when I was pursuing the dream. The person that I was becoming was greater than the person that I had already arrived to be. And I was like, make it fun again. And boy, when I tell you, you better be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. You better be careful for what you ask for. Because for the next 4 years, I was on this carousel of making a team, getting cut by a team, trying out for another team, making a team. And I was like, well, I did ask to pursue something. I would have more fun pursuing it and not necessarily arriving. And so that's what I did for the next 4 years until I finally landed on a place, one of my favorite places in the country, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, playing for the Carolina Panthers. And so that's where I had gotten tired of that carousel, trying out, not making a team, getting cut, trying out, making a team, not playing, getting cut. And I finally landed on Charlotte, North Carolina, where I had my last season of my career.
Mm. And so, speaking to that, man, congrats for making it because not very many, around 300 people get drafted to the NFL. And for those that don't know, Thomas and I both played in the NFL. He was drafted, I was undrafted, and it's cool because you guys go in and you still have, the draft picks get a little bit more, because they were drafted, they were kind of courted. The free agents is still a little bit more of a fight uphill. But at the end of the day, I remember we used to go and speak to kids in middle schools or elementary schools. And one of the questions that kids would always ask me is, hey, what round did you get drafted? And I'd always have to be like, I actually wasn't, I wasn't a high profile guy like that, but, still made it, like I'm here. And then another question they would ask is, how big is your mansion? And I was like, oh, my 2-bedroom apartment is 1,200 feet. I got a
Yeah.
nice little guest bedroom. I got a nice little love sack in the corner to play video games on from time to time. But what the journey is still hard, and it doesn't get any easier when you're on the team because now you have to try to continue to stay there because they bring in guys every year to replace you. They want to find somebody that can do what you do, and they want to be able to pay them less. And so you're always kind of in that mode of fighting for it. How did you handle those mental challenges? Like you said, you asked for more, to bring it to the point where you were more so chasing this dream and it was fun and, you had a fun on the journey. What mental struggles and mental hurdles did you have to get through during that time of just so much uncertainty and so much change?
It's actually something that I just realized recently. So this week, my family's in Bozeman, Montana. I stayed here in Denver, Colorado, so I could get some work done. They're on vacation. And what I noticed, Drew, in the 2 days that they've been gone is that they motivate me. Like I'm sleeping in to like 6:37. I'm waking up, like scratching my head, like, what am I gonna do today? But when they're here, I'm inspired, I'm encouraged. I got my routine, I'm popping. I can run from sun up till sundown, but when they're gone, I'm less motivated, I'm less inspired. And I think what I struggled with the most in the NFL was I didn't have family around me. I had worked my entire upbringing to bring my mom tears of joy. And when I was pursuing that, I never got tired because my vision was greater than my circumstance. And when I got to the NFL, the worst thing that I could have ever done is just say what my dream was to go to the NFL, to make it. I should have had a goal of I'm going to the NFL and I'm going to play there for 10 years. I didn't have that goal. So once I got there, I ran out of steam. I ran out of juice. I ran out of motivation. And then secondly, like I would say, is I didn't have anyone around me that I could say I'm doing it for, right? I'm doing it for myself, but I run out of gas like that. We are creatures that we can have a little bit more in the tank when we're doing it for someone, right? We've all heard of those stories of those, urban legends that when a mom is strong enough to like lift an entire car off their child, why? Not because they're stuck underneath the car, but because something they love is just suffering, struggling, stuck underneath that car. And so they get strength from that. And so I didn't have that. I would say another one of the mental pieces is that I had always pushed people away from me in the NFL. So I was always the guy in linebacker mode. I didn't have that ability to switch on and off. So like when I would talk to the secretary or security at the front gate, I would always have that mean, like just eyebrows down, like snarling at people. And it's like, dude, chill out. We're playing a game, but we're not. You at the grocery store or you walking around the building, you're not trying to tackle anybody. And so I think those were some of the biggest things that I had to overcome. And all of them it was just a defense mechanism. And so I didn't have people close to me who loved me, who I was loving on a day-to-day basis. And so therefore I pushed the people away who were in the building, other teammates. Like I didn't even really go out and hang out, grab food, go to the movies or kick it with any of my teammates because I had that stiff arm up, because I didn't want to let anybody in.
Mm, I appreciate that, man. Thank you for sharing. And I think, I think football players, we built this armor around us because we're looked at as gladiators and we go
Mhm.
out there and we play this game that not a lot of people can do. And sometimes we don't find time to take that armor off when we're in the real world. And for defensive players, more so, and linebackers, I could definitely say it, but it's more so like you guys are not the mean ones on the team, but you guys set the tone. You guys come and run downhill. You guys, hit and play with abandon. And so, but I also think by you talking about that, like we said, you're bouncing around on team to team. You're also like, man, well, I don't want to have any relationships with anybody because I might not
It'll
be
be
here that
gone.
long. You know,
Yep.
like why would I be friends with you? And then, all of a sudden your number doesn't even mean anything in my phone. And sometimes that's how callous football is. Like people say it's a business. And
Yep.
for some people, depending on your journey, it's even harder. But those are one of the things that when you're done, you need to go to some therapy and talk about some things because we pull a lot of that with us. I know athletes in general, because sometimes coaches ask us, hey, when you walk into this building, whatever's happening outside of here, leave that at the front door. You
Yep.
come in here, you worry about football, you can shower after, get your stuff. When you're going back out, grab that stuff and take it with you. But we all know you can't do that with death, with
No.
a relationship problem. Like all that stuff is weighing on you and weighing on your performance. So I appreciate you sharing that. And this is going to be a nice callback because you talked about the reason why you didn't want to play football is because you were in school and you would see people come back on a Monday, Tuesday. They got a cast on, they got their arm in the sling, they might have their ankle in the cast. And in 2011, with you and your playing career, you were one of those people who suffered an injury that kind of changed the trajectory of your career.
Yeah, man.
What was that 2011 injury like?
Man, I'll never forget it. We were playing against the Minnesota Vikings. James Anderson, who was another linebacker, and we would always leave the hotel together and we would there was a street, Drew, I kid you not, there was a street called Victory Lane. So we would take Victory Lane from the hotel all the way into the stadium. We had our pregame meal. The food that we would normally eat, like, I mean, my stuff was just dialed in. I left at this time. I put my right foot shoe on first, all of those things. Get to the stadium feeling good. In the first quarter, I have 4 tackles. I'm like, oh man, if I keep this up, this is going to be a 16 tackle day. And mind you, this is in my 4th year. My contract was up at the end of the year. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is a perfect time to get hot, right? Right when you need to get hot, get hot. And right at the beginning of the second quarter, I ran a routine play, went in to make a tackle. The guy who I was going to tackle ducked under me, and me and one of my teammates collided head to head. And I laid on the football field for 2.5 minutes, and I couldn't feel my hands, couldn't feel my feet. And one of the scariest part about it is that my mom and I had always had this pact. Anytime you're on the field, you get injured, just put your thumb in the air and let me know that you're okay. And my mom wasn't in the stadium that day. She was watching the game at a yard house back in California. And the crazy thing is that I couldn't do it. And so she had told me they went to commercial break. I had gotten helped off the field. I went in for some x-rays, and in the next day I went to MRIs, and by that next week I was put on injured reserve. And there's a couple of different areas that people in the NFL, teams specifically, they don't want to mess with. They don't mess with neck, back, and like knees, right? Because those are lifelong injuries. And so I went on injured reserve. I wasn't able to play for the rest of the year. My season was over, and my career looked like it was going to be over as well.
Man, it's always tough when you get to that point and you have to talk about, these things that you see that happen to teammates or you see it on TV. I know you've been watching football for a long time, and there's sometimes you see a tackle or a hit, and you immediately, I don't know about you, but I turn
Ooh,
away from the TV and I'm like,
ooh.
nope, not, nope,
Mm,
nope. And they're showing the replay of it, and you're like, nah, I don't need to see that, man. Like it's one of the worst times in football to see that. And so,
yeah,
man, just knowing that, you and your mom had kind of this pact of like something to let her know you were okay. And when it didn't show up on that one, it's like, oh, okay, no, something's really wrong, and
yeah.
it's a really bad situation. And so you have this injury. Teams don't like to deal with guys that have neck injuries and back injuries most of the time, the majority of the time,
Mhm.
because they're long, grueling processes. And so you kind of begin the mindset of, what is your mindset moving forward that you're kind of like, all right, my career's in jeopardy. I might need to be transitioning or the next thing that's going to come from this. What is that thought process like? And what are you thinking as you're like, okay, I might need to walk away from this or this might be the end. Now what's next?
Yeah, so I was on an airplane flying from the East Coast back to California. Once I had decided, or once it had been decided for me that my career was over. And so I was just writing on a piece of paper, what is it that you want to do next in your life? And so I just was starting to write down all the things that I felt that I was good at, right? So we would call them transferable skills. And I remember at the very end, I wrote down, what is it that you want to do? I want to play golf 3 times a week. I want to be able to take a nap every day, and I want to inspire the world. So my statement that I wrote for myself that day is that I want to be the person that people speak to right before they get ready to do something they don't even believe they can do. And how was I going to do that? So right before I had retired in July of 2012, because I had tried to come back that next year, and right before I retired in July, I was in California, down in Orange County. I was speaking to a group of like 15-year-olds, all athletes. And when I got done speaking to them, the person who put on the event said, "You are really good at this." And I was like, "What's this?" She's like speaking to people. You should look into doing it. And I was like, "Well, like a job?" She was like, "Yeah, this is like a career. This is a job." So very similar to football, I just fell into it. And so for me, I had kind of known, I guess, subconsciously what I wanted to do. Now, did I know it was a business? Did I know? But I could at least attach myself to something next, because that's the biggest thing when you stop playing sports, is that you're not able to attach yourself to another team, to an identity, to an occupation, to a job description. And I think that was one of the hardest things. But I knew that I had this gift to speak, to encourage, to empower. I mean, I remember the very first time, it was in college. There's 103 other individuals who were like, "We're about to take the field." And I think it was like Matt Leinart who was like, "T Will, hey, T Will, man, give us some juice before we go to the game." And I was like, what? Mind you, I'm not even starting. I'm not one of the star players. I'm not a captain on the team, but it was a gift that was inside of me that they were like, "Hey, we're not leaving this locker room until you motivate us, until you move us, until you let us know what's going to be our mantra, what's going to be our mindset, what's going to be our anchor going into the game." And so I had used that all of college, in the NFL. And now I'm like, maybe that lady was onto something. Maybe I can use my voice not to go help people run through other humans, but to run through the walls that they've placed in their lives, the breakthroughs, the things that they want to accomplish, they want to do, but they haven't had anybody tell them that they believe in them. They haven't had anybody give them the skill sets, the tools, the strategies. And so I started on the journey of becoming what most people call a motivational speaker. I just say a professional reminder. I don't want to get people to do anything that they don't want to do. I just want to remind them of what they said they wanted to accomplish a long time ago, whether it's a year ago, whether it's 10 years ago. But a lot of people have forgotten their goals, their dreams, their visions because of life circumstances. And I just want to remind them that it's never too late. Let's get started now.
The professional reminder, baby. Thomas R. Williams. That's just a beautiful story, man. You took tragedy. I like having people on here that have been through adversity because people see it and they're like, "Oh, the path for you must have been so easy." And you're
Right.
like no. This path was everybody thinks it's A to Z, and there's all these detours and sub stops in between. And I always like to ask this question for former athletes that I have on, played in college, played in the NFL. Looking back on your career, do you have any regrets that you have as an athlete?
Yeah, man, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, is that I think I would have had a much better time in the NFL. I did it in college where I loved everyone. It didn't matter if you were on the team, the manager, the ball boys, the camera people, the people who worked in administration. But I didn't have that when I played in the NFL. So I wasn't necessarily focused on building relationships. I was only focused on making a team, making an income, generating revenue. And I wasn't necessarily focused on other people. And it wasn't until I got out of the NFL where I focused on, and how do you get out of that? How do you break that? If I could go back and I could tell myself, or I could do something different, I would tell myself every single day to be more interested than interesting. Be more interested in the people who you're at work with, who's around the facility, than interested in, hey, look at me. Interested or interesting in, this is what I have to offer. These are all the great plays I'm making, or this is how I'm going to get paid, for this upcoming week. And so I think that's one of the biggest regrets that I have, is that I was not relational. I was transactional.
Mm. And with you coming and being a motivational speaker slash professional reminder now, you're working on a lot of things and things that people can come to. Like you said, you're pouring into them, you're getting them to realize their dreams and aspirations and visions and missions that they have for themselves. Do you have anything coming up in the near future for people to, if they want to be a part of, to be a part of or to look for in the future?
Yeah. So we have a men's mastermind retreat that will be August 28th through August 31st. Not sure when you're going to hear this, but that is the next thing that's happening. And then fast forward, we will have a Winning Edge accelerated program through the month of November. And that is helping people identify their goals, finish strong on the current year, and also get set up for the upcoming year. Because you think about it, why do people fail at setting out on a goal to obtain by the end of the year? They start January 1st, and it's crazy because there's only 12 to 15% of people who set out on a goal in January who actually accomplish it in December. Why? Because they get burnt out, they get frustrated, all of these things. But your chances increase to 40% if you set out on that goal the year before. So we have a November accelerated course of getting you in alignment for the upcoming year. And then next year, we'll also have another mastermind program where I take people and identify their own personal winning edge to help them win at home, win in business, win in life.
Mm, men's retreats, mastermind programs, just all this stuff that I'm glad that you're cultivating in this space because, like I said, Thomas, we've known each other for a while. And I've always seen special in you. I've always seen greatness in you. You've always treated people and these connections and networking, just like you said before, like you wish you would have did it while you were playing.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a phenomenal job of it right now by being genuine and then just also taking interest in other people. Like you said, not just you being interesting, but you being interested in other people. And we've talked about it a little bit throughout this interview of people that have had an impact in your life. But one big thing I like to talk about is mentors and people that you've come across in your life, or even current mentors that you currently have now that have made a difference for you and what you're working towards and just how you approach everything. Who are some people in your life currently or before that served as great mentors for you to help you get to where you currently are now?
Yeah, man. At every stop, every level, I've been very blessed to have positive mentors. Like I said before, Ron, my stepdad, when I was coming up, like he would watch the game of baseball with me. He would work all day long and he would come home and I would just couldn't wait till he come home so we could play catch. And so that was one. I think another mentor for me was my high school coach, Ed Santa Padre, who worked effortlessly, tirelessly, every day in and day out to make sure I took the right classes so I could be eligible to go to college. I get to college and I have, the guy's pictures right there. He still means that much to me, is Ken Norton Jr., who I just recently spent about a half a day with. And yeah, I'm not playing football anymore. He's not coaching me, but he's always my coach for life. And then when it comes to speaking, when it comes to writing, when it comes to the business of personal and professional development, it's Jon Gordon, who's written 31, I think, books, and like 18 of them are bestsellers. And he has been tremendous. I also have some other coaches and mentors. Amy P. Kelly, who's also a part of our team in Mastermind Group, and Julie Nee, who are phenomenal trainers slash facilitators, because I think that in order to become great in whatever you want, you must look up to people who are already great in that area. And so I've been lucky to be exposed to them. And then I also want to give, I don't know if it's naivete or ignorance in a way, because I'm willing to ask people like, will you help me with this? Can you show me how you do what you do? So I think there's a bit of humility with that. But also, Drew, I didn't have that humility when I played football because I was still dealing with the saboteurs, if you will, telling me that I wasn't, if I asked for questions, if I asked for help, then I'm stupid, I'm a dumb jock, then I'm worthless, then all of the negative narrative that I've painted or said to myself, it makes that true. And so getting healthy mentally and emotionally, I can go up to anybody and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. And actually what you were explaining and saying made no sense to me. Can you elaborate and go a little bit further with your explanation?
Mm, that's confidence. That's being secure in who
Yeah.
you are and knowing that, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier. I was just like, just because you ask a question about something doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean it means you want to learn. It means you want to get better. And Thomas is one of those people. There was an episode I did a while ago where I texted and talked to about 5 or 7 people in my phone and I asked them, how do I get better? And Thomas
Mm,
was one of those people that he emailed me and wrote me back. He said, "Well, what do you mean? Hey, let's jump on a phone call about this. Like, hey, let's get together." It wasn't just like he said, and this is what I said. It speaks to him and how he is. Is he said, he's intentional about what he does, and he said, I want to make sure I'm answering your question, but then I
mm,
also want to make sure that we're touching base and we're being face to face. And so I really appreciate that from you, Thomas, and it speaks volumes of the work that you're doing right now and everything that you do, how you show up for your family, how you show up for your wife, how you show up for all the people that you mentor and you help on their journey and their road with what they do as well. And I always like to tee the last word up just as we get out of here for anybody that's listening or anybody that's going to hear this. What advice or what lasting words does Thomas Williams have to leave with anybody that tunes in this today, that's looking for purpose or direction or motivation or professional reminders, as you said?
yeah,
What's your last bit that you have to say before we get out of here?
man. One of the hardest things to do is to start. It could be anything. Whatever it is that you want to accomplish, the hardest thing is to start. I was listening to a podcast, Drew, I think I sent it to you, and the guy was talking about preparation paralysis, right? It has to be perfect in order for me to leap. And it has to be perfect in order for me to put it out there to launch. I think I've had like 9 different websites since I started speaking. And if I were to go back and look at my first one, it's trash. Not the people that did it, but it's trash just because it was my first one. And I think my most recent website is better because it's up to date. But I had to go through 8 other versions, variations of that website to get better. And I think the thing is that people think they have to be perfect to start, but you don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to start to get better.
Mm,
And most of the time, people want to be perfect first time out, but knowing that you won't. It took me, I played football for free for 15 years before I ever received a dime to play the game of football. No college coach was like, hey, I remember you playing football in the park at 7 years old and you made that spectacular catch. That's why you're here. No, they said the reason why you're here is because you progressed, you've gotten better. We've seen the growth in you. So I just want to encourage and remind people that you are not at the best version of who you will be today. But as long as you start, you keep going, you stay consistent with momentum, you will become the best that you've ever been.
Start. START, baby.
Say it for
Start.
the people in the back.
You started. You heard it from him. You've heard it from Thomas Williams. As we get out here, how can people reach you? They want to hire you for a speaking engagement. They want you to come in, lead a workshop. How can people reach out to you and get connected with you?
Yeah, man, tap in with me at the website, thomasrwilliams.com. I have no social media. We can be for another conversation, Drew. But if you want to find me in the professional setting, look me up, Thomas R. Williams on LinkedIn.
Easy and as simple as that. Once again, Thomas, I appreciate your time, man. This is the latest episode of Too Good to Be Drew. It is a pleasure to have people on here that I know, that I believe in, the people that pour into me as well. And I hope you got something from this conversation today that you'll take with you. Once again, that's Thomas R. Williams. Follow him on whatever he said, everything he said. But mostly just tap in with him, man. If you want to bring somebody in to talk, to speak, he's great at doing that. And he is really, really good at what he does. So that's all we got for today. Everybody stay healthy and we out this thing.
Peace.
Peace. Man, bro, that was awesome.